So for our second Art of Teaching, Teaching Tips presentation, I'm very happy to introduce Art Woods, Associate Professor in the Division of Biological Sciences. Art received his PhD in zoology from the University of Washington in 1998. His research interests include, and I'm going to read all of them because they're so fun, insect physiology, plant-insect interactions, environmental biophysics, acclimation and plasticity, temperature and oxygen biology, gas exchange, ecological and evolutionary physiology, evolution of physiological systems. In particular, his group right now is working on gigantism in Antarctica, including work on sea spiders and the biology of gigantism, including recent papers, and I have to say this one too because it's so fun, respiratory gut peristalsis in sea spiders. Did I get that right? Yeah. It's very fun stuff. Over 60 refereed publications, including numerous publications with his graduate students. I point that out. I mean, you're all new graduate students. It's really important for you in the sciences, especially to kind of move the whole research enterprise forward for yourself with these fantastic graduate mentors we have here. And then he also has a podcast called Big Biology, and it doesn't matter if you're STEM or non-STEM, go listen to Big Biology. It is fantastic. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, all those things, all those podcasty things. It's a fantastic interview show that he has set up with another colleague on issues related to biology. Among his many NSF awards is a grant on developing undergraduate research as part of teaching, which is rooted in Art's devotion to undergraduate teaching, about which he's going to talk to you today. Please help me welcome him.
Use this one so I can move around. Thanks for the introduction. That was very nice. I came an hour ago and listened to Sarah talk, and she said some things that I was going to say. Oh, don't do that. So tip number one is make sure your PowerPoints actually work. She said a number of things that I had thought about saying, and so I went back to my office about 45 minutes ago and erased some of the things that I was going to say. And so tip number one is be flexible. Conditions will change on the ground, and you can just roll with it. And that sort of fits with one of our other points, which is that you know a lot. And you probably know more than you think you do, and you certainly know more than most of the students that you'll be interacting with. And so don't be afraid to just be flexible in the very moment. So what I did is I cut down to a couple of other things that I think maybe are less intuitive or non-standard, and I just want to tell you three of them with some brief illustrations. So one of them is to be vulnerable in front of the class. And by that I mean, wear your emotions on your sleeve. You guys are coming to grad school surely because you're passionate about whatever you're doing, and you want to channel that passion and communicate that to the students. Don't take this stance of you're just a conduit for information, or we have this range of things that we have to get through in the class, and we're going to get through it in some sort of clicky mechanical way. No, get to the core of what it is that brought you into academia and that brought you to grad school, and try to let the students know about that. I'm not going to talk about how I got to grad school for just a minute, but I want to show you something that has caught my eye in the last couple of days. Carl Zimmer is a science journalist at the New York Times whose stuff I really love. And he had yesterday this article in the New York Times. So another tip, pay attention to breaking events because there's cool stuff happening all the time. And it's about a new fossil find that is a bone fragment that was 90,000 years old. And it shows very clearly from a DNA analysis that the individual whose bone it was a hybrid between a Neanderthal and what's called a Denisovan. You've surely heard of Neanderthals, maybe not so much Denisovans. They're ancient hominid lineages, and they probably separated up to about 400,000 years ago. So here's how I might have taught about that 10 years ago. I would have focused on the nuts and bolts, and I'll just let you read this. This is text directly from the Nature article, which just came out a couple of days ago. All right, you got that? So this paragraph, this sentence really is the key to the whole paper. That's the entire result right there. And you might be yawning and saying, well, so what? And so let's just think about what this really means. And here's, where the passion comes in, because I love human evolutionary history. I mean, to me, there is nothing more interesting than this incredibly rich evolutionary tapestry of events that happened that led to the emergence of our own species. Where did we as humans come from? Fantastic, fascinating question. And in a biological sense, what that means is, how do we understand the evolution of hominids over the past 4 to 6 million years and the emergence in the last few 100,000 years of our own species? And the incredible thing is that over that period of time, there have been multiple hominid groups that coexisted at the same time. And in this case, were mating with one another and forming hybrids from lineages that were diverged by at least several 100,000 years. Astonishing. So that's the passionate take. That's kind of the goosebump take for me on this super dry language. And that's what you want to communicate. I mean, I know not everybody's in the sciences or biology, but find that thing that drives your interest in academia and grad school. Another thing I would recommend is just to tell your own story. So I have a number of stories about my own history that I sometimes bring up at the right moment. One that I sometimes tell undergraduates that I'm talking to is about how I got into biology in the first place, which is indirect. I went to college, bound and determined to be a physics major, and then I started taking physics classes, and I could not hack it. I could not hack it at all. And so I bailed out, and I sort of floated around for a couple of years, and then ended up taking biology classes basically because my friends were taking biology classes, and it was instant love when I found that. So that's basically a story about my failure and how it redirected me into something that ended up being a career for me. And that can be a powerful thing for students to hear, because many of them are not focused on the value of failure, and failure can be a really good thing. Here's another one that I might tell to grad students such as yourselves. So you guys are all going to be in the position of writing papers and publishing them, right? That's a key kind of bread and butter thing for most graduate students in academics. I had a paper that I wrote in grad school in about my third year, and it was a critique of an important and leading physiological hypothesis, and I submitted it to a high-profile journal, and I got reviews back, and they were by far the worst reviews I've ever gotten on a paper. They said, the reviewers said, it would be a disservice to the field to publish this opinion. So that's pretty harsh. And I'm pretty sure one of the reviewers was the original guy who established the hypothesis, and so it was partly him, defending his territory. So that was a blow, and at that point, that was tough to take because I had pretty thin skin. And it was stressful because you think, man, maybe I'm really not cut out for this. I'm a disservice to the field. And I rewrote it a little bit modestly, and I ended up publishing it somewhere else. And it's turned out actually to be one of my more cited papers. And I'm proud of it. I mean, it was actually, I think, a good idea, lo those many years ago. And so, again, that's sort of talking about my own arc. And I guess the meta message here is that everybody has an arc and interesting things that happened in your life that got you to where you are. And don't hesitate to draw on those to, communicate ideas that you want to get across to students. Here's maybe the most important one that I've been trying to do over the last 6 or 8 years, and that is to say less. So I'm up here droning on already. I've said a lot of words, but I'm going to stop because I want your input on an event. So this is something that Josh Herring and David Erickson put me onto recently, a way to sort of get interactive work going in the classroom. This is a time series of the Wilkins ice shelf in Antarctica in 2008, and what you see is a collapse over the course of a couple of days, and then there's a bunch of ice just sort of coming out from the collapse zone over here. So what I want to know, and we're going to get your answers on this, is do collapses like this contribute to rising sea levels? I need help passing these out because we're going to use them to get answers. All right, let's get your answers. Okay, that's good. Yeah, we're doing it again. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, so in theory, what I would do right now is show you the results of those 2 questions, and it's not doing it. So this is a technology fail. But I can tell you what happened is about 2/3 of you chose A the first time around, and about 1/3 chose C. And the second time around, it's slightly more chose C. So you guys decided that it depends. Okay, I think you learned more from that than you would have if I'd droned on about physics and ice floating and densities of fresh and salt water and buoyancy. So thanks very much. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is.